In the Middle Ages, bread could kill you. What looked like a simple loaf on the table sometimes carried a hidden poison. Families who ate it could soon collapse with convulsions, cry out in terror, or lose their limbs to blackened rot. No one understood what was happening. Some said it was the devil's curse. Others believed God was punishing sinners. But the real enemy was inside the grain itself, spreading from one harvest to another in silence. Bread was more than food in medieval Europe. It was survival. Every class ate it daily, from peasants chewing dense rye loaves to nobles enjoying soft white wheat bread. For poor families, bread often made up over half of their diet. Without it, famine loomed. That's why no one questioned its safety. If bread made you sick, you didn't blame the loaf, you blamed fate, sin, or the stars. The dependence on bread meant its dangers struck harder than any weapon. The danger began before the dough ever reached the oven. In cold, damp fields, rye grew better than wheat and fed millions. But rye carried a risk. It attracted a fungus called Claviceps purpurea. To farmers, it looked like black, horn-shaped kernels hiding among normal grain. They had no way to tell which sacks were safe and which were cursed. Once milled into flour, the fungus vanished into the mix. Every loaf looked innocent, yet every bite carried invisible death. The sickness that followed was later named ergotism. Its symptoms terrified entire villages. Victims screamed that their skin was burning, twisted in violent seizures, or claimed demons dragged them through hell. In severe cases, blood stopped flowing to hands and feet, turning them black until they rotted away. People called it Street Anthony's fire, praying to saints for relief. But prayer didn't stop the horror. The poison kept spreading, hidden in the bread that everyone trusted most. This wasn't just a medieval legend. In 1951, the French town of Pont-Saint-Esprit faced a nightmare known as the cursed bread. Hundreds were struck with seizures and hallucinations after eating from a single bakery. Some believed their bodies were covered in flames, others jumped from windows in panic. The cause was traced back to contaminated rye flour, the same killer that haunted medieval Europe. Even in modern times, the danger inside bread could return without warning. The worst cases of ergotism left victims disfigured for life. Fingers, toes, or even whole limbs blackened and fell away. Some survivors lived crippled, unable to work or care for themselves. Others died slowly, consumed by infection. Medieval chroniclers wrote about entire groups of people limping through towns, missing arms or feet, begging for help. To onlookers, it looked like a plague sent from heaven itself. To the victims, it was a slow-burning nightmare, all born from their daily bread. Since no one knew about fungi or toxins, people turned to faith for answers. Priests declared the sickness a divine punishment. Pilgrims traveled to shrines of St. Anthony, whose order became known for caring for the afflicted. Villagers carried bread to churches, hoping prayers would bless it safe. But every harvest brought new outbreaks. When nothing worked, suspicion turned darker. Whispers of witchcraft, curses, and demons spread fear faster than the disease itself. Bread became a symbol of both life and death. Some of the largest outbreaks struck in France and Germany, where rye bread dominated diets. Entire villages were crippled, and thousands of people died. In one famous case, chroniclers described processions of the damned, crowds of victims staggering together, hallucinating and screaming. These epidemics lasted for centuries, creating a legacy of terror around rye. Yet no one could simply stop eating it. Bread was too essential, and hunger was deadlier than fear. So the cycle continued, generation after generation. The tragedy didn't stay in the Middle Ages. In 1951, the outbreak in Pont-Saint-Esprit shocked the modern world. Doctors at first blamed chemical weapons or mass hysteria. Only later did researchers confirm it was contaminated rye flour, the same culprit as centuries before. This modern echo proved how little had changed. Even with science and medicine, people were still vulnerable to the same hidden poison that tormented their ancestors. The bread that built societies could also break them apart. Science finally solved the mystery. Researchers discovered the fungus Claviceps purpurea produced toxic alkaloids, that caused both gangrene and hallucinations. These compounds even became the basis for LSD in the 20th century. What once fueled terror in villages later inspired experiments in psychology and medicine. The same demon bread that drove people mad also unlocked discoveries about the human mind. History had turned a curse into a tool, but its deadly shadow over the past remained unforgettable. In the end, medieval bread was both blessing and curse. It fed kingdoms, kept families alive, and shaped European diets. But hidden inside rye fields, a fungus waited to turn that blessing into a nightmare. To medieval people, it was divine wrath. To us, it's a reminder of how fragile survival once was. A single loaf of bread could mean life today or death tomorrow. And that's why medieval bread wasn't just food. It was the most dangerous meal in history.